The preseason AP poll is here, and I'm about to look at it for the very first time. So, starting at number 25 is Mizzou, then Louisville at 24, Houston 23, Iowa 22, Utah 21, Tennessee 20, SMU 19, Penn State 18, Washington 17, Michigan 16, USC 14, tied with BYU. Alabama at 13, Texas Tech at 12, LSU 11, Oklahoma 10, Ole Miss 9, A&M 8, Miami at 7, Indiana 6, Texas at 5, Notre Dame 4, Georgia 3, Oregon 2, and Ohio State number 1. I'll get to the lower teams a little later. I have less thoughts on those, but starting in the top, Dame and Texas, none of these teams scream top 5 to me, especially Oregon at number 2. I think it's kind of crazy that you have a team like them there instead of, um, teams like Indiana and Miami, who I think are going to be way better. Um, than especially Notre Dame and Texas. Oregon, I could definitely see in the top 5. It's just not at number 2. Um, But then moving down, even like I just said, with Indiana and Miami being at 6 and 7 instead of in the top 5, there's teams like A&M, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma that round out the top 10. And I don't know. I don't hate these decisions. I just think there's better choices. With those being Texas Tech and Alabama, I think are fit top 10 better. Ole Miss especially is one I don't like seeing in that, just because I think the coaching change is going to surprise a lot of people more than they think it will. Especially with the fact of I just don't think Ole Miss is going to be better than LSU, especially. Um, and so putting them at number 9 ahead of teams like LSU and Texas Tech and Alabama really shocks me and I think is stupid. Um, One thing I really love though is how high BYU is. 14 for them is honestly right where I would want them to be in the AP poll to start the season. So this is something I'm really happy about. Same with USC being tied with them there. Um, Not only I like USC being that high, but I like BYU being seen as a team that's tied with USC and that sort of thought process going behind that. Um, because BYU and USC are teams I have really highly. I obviously picked them to be in my playoffs that were earlier in this video. And then moving down to the teams I care less about just because they don't matter as much in terms of playoffs, I guess. But Michigan, Washington, Penn State, SMU, and Tennessee round out the top 20. Um, I don't know. I feel like Penn State should not be here. They didn't do enough for me to especially be in the top 20, but I guess top 25 would have been fine, but to be over teams like Utah and Tennessee, really I feel like is odd. Just because I just don't see that Penn State is going to do anything special. And obviously, the preseason AP poll is always wrong. It's always horrible. Um, but yeah, this is one of those I just really don't like. I would have been completely fine with Penn State not being in this poll. They just don't have the roster this year to really compete for anything, in my opinion. Um, some things I do like though in this lower part is I love Houston being in there. Obviously, I think they honestly could be a little bit higher, maybe at that 20 to 21 range, which isn't much higher than they are at, but still, I would have liked seeing them a bit higher. Um, and then I really love Louisville getting in there. Louisville has a great roster this year. I think they can really be competitive in the ACC. They're a team I think can maybe take Miami's spot if someone will take Miami's spot in the ACC this year. Um, Except that Miami has a lot to play for in the ACC just because they haven't been able to actually get the job done in the ACC. They are a good team always. Obviously, they made it to the national championship game last year, but they didn't even win the ACC last year. And so I think Miami has something to prove. But if there was a team that was going to take the ACC away from them, Louisville, a team like SMU is definitely something I would pick to maybe have that happen with. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely been worse AP polls, but I don't love, especially the just a lot of the teams that got in this last 10 over here. And then just moving around a lot of the stuff up here, but there's been worse AP polls. There's going to be worse AP polls this year, and I'll look at those too.